My neighbor reported my ugly car to the HOA, so I parked a tank in my driveway. Ada, for parking a tank in my driveway after my neighbor complained about my car to the HOA. Okay, Reddit, I need your judgment. I'm pretty sure I'm in the right here, but this situation has escalated way faster than I expected, and I'm starting to second guess myself. It all started with my car. I'm a mechanic. I love cars. I especially love old cars, the kind that require a lot of TLC. For the past 5 years, I've been working on restoring a 1967 Ford Mustang Fastback. It's my baby, my passion project. It's not perfect, mind you. It's got some rust. The paint job is, well, let's call it patina, and the exhaust is a little enthusiastic, but it runs like a dream, and it's mine. I've poured blood, sweat, and tears, and a lot of money into this car. I live in a relatively nice neighborhood, the kind with a homeowners association, HOA. I'm not a huge fan of HOAs, but the house was a good deal, and I figured I could deal with the rules. Most of the time it's fine. Keep your lawn mowed. Don't paint your house neon pink, the usual stuff. Enter Karen, not her real name, but it fits. Karen lives directly across the street from me. She's intense. The kind of person who measures the height of your grass with a ruler and reports you if it's a millimeter too long. She's also the president of the HOA, which, as you can imagine, is a delightful combination. From the moment I moved in, Karen has had it in for me. I think it's because I don't fit her ideal image of a neighbor. I'm a single guy. I work with my hands and I drive a car that's older than she is. She's made snide comments about my junkyard dog, my adorable rescue mutt, Sparky, my unsightly work clothes, and of course my Mustang. For the first few months I ignored her. I figured she was just a busybody with nothing better to do. But then things escalated. She started leaving passive-aggressive notes on my door. Then came the official HOA violation notices. First it was for excessive noise. I was working on the engine. Then it was for unsightly vehicles. The Mustang, obviously. Then it was for unapproved landscaping. I planted some wildflowers instead of boring old grass. I tried to be reasonable. I explained to the HOA board that the Mustang was a restoration project, that I was working on it as quickly as possible, and that it was fully registered and insured. They seemed sympathetic, but Karen was relentless. She kept pushing, kept complaining, kept finding new things to nitpick. Finally, I got a notice that I had 30 days to remove the unsightly vehicle from my property or face daily fines. That was the last straw. I was furious. I'd followed all the rules, except maybe the wildflower one. I'd tried to be a good neighbor, and this woman was making my life a living hell. So, I decided to fight back. Not with lawyers or arguments, but with, well, you'll see. I have a friend, Mark, who's a military surplus dealer. He's got all sorts of weird and wonderful stuff in his warehouse. I called him up and explained my situation. He laughed, then said, "I think I have just the thing." A week later, a flatbed truck pulled up to my house carrying a 1960s-era M41 Walker Bulldog light tank. It's not exactly street legal. The main gun is deactivated, obviously, but it's technically a historic vehicle, and Mark had all the paperwork to prove it. I parked the tank in my driveway right next to the Mustang. It took up almost the entire space. It was glorious. Karen, predictably, lost her mind. She came storming out of her house, screaming about eyesores and property values, and violating every rule in the book. I just smiled and waved. She called the HOA board. They came over, looked at the tank, looked at the paperwork, and shrugged. There was nothing in the HOA rules about tanks. There were rules about vehicles, sure, but this was technically a historic artifact, not a vehicle in the traditional sense. Karen was apoplectic. She threatened to sue me, the HOA, Mark, and probably the entire United States military. I just kept smiling. Then she called the cops. Update 1, about 2 hours later. Holy crap, Reddit. Things have escalated again. The cops showed up, 2 officers looking very confused. Karen was ranting and raving, pointing at the tank and demanding they arrest me. The officers, to their credit, were pretty chill. They asked to see the paperwork for the tank. I showed them everything Mark had given me. The bill of sale, the registration as a historic vehicle. The documentation showing the gun was deactivated. They looked at each other, looked at Karen, then looked back at me. "Sir?" one of them said. "Is this a tank?" "It is," I said, trying to keep a straight face. "A historic artifact, to be precise." Karen was practically vibrating with rage. "It's a weapon of war," she shrieked. "He's endangering the entire neighborhood." The officers ignored her. "Sir," the other officer said, "is there anything in the HOA rules that specifically prohibits tanks?" I pulled out a copy of the HOA bylaws. I'd printed them out just in case. "Nope," I said, pointing to the relevant sections. "It says vehicles must be in good repair and not an eyesore. This is a historic vehicle. It's in historic condition, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right?" The officers chuckled. Karen did not. They talked to Karen for a few minutes, trying to calm her down. They explained that there was nothing they could do. It wasn't a police matter. It was a civil dispute between me and the HOA. And frankly, I wasn't breaking any laws. Karen was livid. She started yelling about calling her lawyer, calling the mayor, calling the governor. The officers just nodded politely, then got back in their car and drove away. As they were leaving, one of the officers leaned out the window and said, "Nice tank, by the way." I grinned. "So, Reddit, AITA, I know it's a bit extreme, but I feel like I was pushed to this point. Karen has been harassing me for months, and this was the only way I could think of to get her to back off. I'm not hurting anyone, I'm not breaking any laws, and frankly, it's kind of hilarious. But I'm also a little worried. Karen is clearly not going to give up. I'm expecting a lawsuit any day now, and I'm not sure what the HOA is going to do. They might try to change the rules to specifically ban tanks, but that could take months. What do you think, Reddit? Did I go too far?" Update 3, a few days later. Reddit, I did not see this coming. I received an official letter from the HOA. I was expecting to be sued. I have never been more wrong. The letter basically stated that, due to recent events, several HOA members wanted Karen to step down as president. They claimed she was abusing her power and cited my situation as proof. It was a long letter that basically said she was an awful president. But the real kicker? The bylaws state that the president must follow all HOA rules to the letter. And the letter said that Karen had violated 3 rules. 1. She had a garden gnome that was 1 inch tall. 2. She had a bird feeder that was against the rules. 3. She had a flagpole that was not regulation. I don't even know where to start. Karen, who spent months tormenting me over my car, was removed from her position because of a garden gnome. I could not stop laughing. I expected Karen to, protest, send nasty letters. Instead, she packed up. Yep, I looked out my window yesterday, and there was a moving truck at Karen's. Apparently, after the HOA removed her as president, Karen and her husband decided to move. She could not handle not being in control. I have not seen her since, but that's not the best part. The HOA in the same letter stated that there will be a vote on the historic vehicle bylaw, but until the vote is finalized, I'm allowed to keep the tank. I won. So, Reddit, I think this is the end. I am going to enjoy the peace and quiet. Update 4, a week after Update 3. Reddit, it's been a week of relative peace and quiet. Karen's house is officially empty. I saw the new owners moving in yesterday. A young couple with a couple of kids and a very large, very friendly-looking dog. They waved at me, and I waved back. I think I'm going to like them. The HOA, meanwhile, has been surprisingly quiet. The vote on the historic vehicle bylaw is still pending, but I haven't heard any rumblings of discontent. In fact, I've had several neighbors stop by to tell me they support me and that they're glad Karen is gone. It seems like her reign of terror extended far beyond just me. The local news did a follow-up story, mostly focusing on Karen's sudden departure and the upcoming HOA vote. They interviewed the new HOA president, a mild-mannered man named Mr. Henderson, who seemed very eager to distance himself from Karen's enthusiasm. He assured the reporter that the HOA was committed to fairness and reasonableness, and that they would be reviewing all of their bylaws, not just the one about vehicles. I even got a call from a lawyer, but not the kind I was expecting. It wasn't Karen's lawyer threatening to sue me. It was a lawyer representing a local museum. They'd seen the news reports about the tank and were wondering if I'd be willing to loan it to them for a temporary exhibit on unusual neighborhood disputes. I'm still considering it. It would be kind of cool to have the tank in a museum, even if it's just for a little while. The best part, though, has been the reactions from people online. My original Reddit post blew up. It's been shared thousands of times, and I've received hundreds of messages of support. People are calling me a legend, a hero, and even a genius, which is definitely an overstatement. I've even seen a few memes featuring my tank and Karen's furious face. It's surreal. Mark, my military surplus friend, is loving it. He says he's sold out of everything even remotely tank-related. He's even thinking of starting a Tank Man merchandise line. I told him I want a cut of the profits. So life is good. The Mustang is still parked in my driveway right next to the tank. I've been able to work on it in peace, without Karen screeching at me. Sparky, my dog, loves the extra attention he's getting from all the visitors, and I'm feeling vindicated. I stood up to a bully, and I won, but I know this isn't quite over yet. The HOA vote is still looming, and I have a feeling Karen isn't completely out of the picture. Update 5. 2 weeks after Update 4. Okay, Reddit, the HOA vote happened, and it was anticlimactic. I attended the meeting, of course, along with a surprisingly large number of my neighbors. Most of them were there to support me, which was incredibly heartwarming. Mr. Henderson, the new HOA president, called the meeting to order. He looked nervous. He gave a brief summary of the situation, carefully avoiding any mention of Karen's name. He then introduced the proposed amendment to the vehicle bylaw. It was surprisingly reasonable. It basically said that historic vehicles, including military vehicles, were allowed as long as they were 1. Properly registered and insured, 2. Maintained in a safe condition, no leaking fluids, etc. 3. Not actively used as weapons, 4. Not parked in a way that obstructed traffic or sidewalks. There was a brief discussion, mostly about the definition of historic vehicle. Someone asked if a DeLorean with a flux capacitor would count. Seriously. Mr. Henderson said he'd have to consult with the HOA lawyer. Then it was time to vote. I held my breath. The vote was unanimous. Everyone voted in favor of the amendment. Even the people who I knew had been on Karen's side before. It seems like her departure had broken her stranglehold on the neighborhood. Mr. Henderson announced the result, looking relieved. He then said, "And, just for the record, we're also officially renaming this amendment the Tank Rule." The room erupted in applause. I grinned. I couldn't help it. I'd actually changed the HOA policy with a tank. After the meeting, several neighbors came up to congratulate me. They said they were proud to live in a neighborhood with someone who stood up for what's right. They even suggested having a neighborhood barbecue to celebrate. I'm definitely in favor of that, so that's it, Reddit. The tank war is officially over. I won. Karen is gone. The HOA is slightly less insane. And I have a tank in my driveway. Update 6. A month later, final update. Reddit. It's been a month since the HOA vote, and things have settled down. The tank is still in my driveway, and it's become a bit of a local landmark. People stop by to take pictures with it all the time. I've even started giving it a little polish every now and then. The Mustang is finally finished. I took it to a local car show last weekend, and it won Best in Show. It was a proud moment. I even put a little sign next to it that said, "Sponsored by the tank." I haven't heard from Karen directly, but I did hear a rumor through the grapevine. Apparently, she moved to another HOA-controlled community, and within a week, she was already complaining about the color of her neighbor's mailbox. Some people never learn. The new neighbors are great. We've had a couple of barbecues, and the kids love playing with Sparky. It feels like a real community now, not just a collection of houses ruled by a tyrant. As for the museum offer, I decided to go for it. The tank will be on display for a few months as part of an exhibit on neighborhood disputes and how to resolve them, sometimes. They're even going to include a photo of me and Karen, her face blurred, of course. So, that's the end of the story, Reddit. It's been a wild ride, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I learned a lot about standing up for myself, about the power of community, and about the surprising effectiveness of military surplus. And most importantly, I learned that sometimes the best way to deal with a bully is to park a tank in your driveway. Thanks for all the support, Reddit. You've been amazing. I'm going to go work on my car now. Small update, not worthy of a full post. Just saw a post on Nextdoor from Karen's new neighborhood. Apparently, she's now the president of their HOA. And her first act? Banning all unsightly vehicles, including classic cars. I can't help but laugh. Some people are just destined to be Karens. I almost feel sorry for her new neighbors. Almost. I'm just glad I have my tank. You never know when you might need it. That's all for this story. I'll be back with another one. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. It motivates me to create more content like this.